This is Day to Day. I'm Madeline Brand. Celebrities. We're on a first-name basis. Brad and Angelina, Tom and Katie, Brittany and what's-his-name. We yearn for each fresh detail of their lives, and every week magazines like Us Weekly and People are happy to oblige. They're stuffed with stories and, more importantly, pictures of our favorite stars. It was Fellini who coined the word paparazzo. It was the name of one of the characters in La Dolce Vita, a hungry Italian photographer chasing movie stars. And Fellini just loved the sound of the word, paparazzo, thinking it evoked the frenetic energy of his character. Today, the word is more of a slur. Paparazzi are vilified, blamed for hounding stars, sometimes to death, as was the case with Princess Diana. But even when the stars don't want to be photographed, the paparazzi show up. They operate like private eyes, paying off all sorts of people for information: law enforcement officials, nurses, valet parkers. One photographer said it's best to go for the celebrity's second cousin. Close enough to have information, but not close enough to be on the star's payroll.
Goodbye.
Ben Evenstad is a 25-year-old paparazzi photographer. He's driving a black Lexus SUV, paid for, he says, not leased. Ben earns somewhere in the six figures. He won't say exactly how much. Today, someone phones in a tip that's not exactly earth-shattering.
Mira Sorvino and her kid are at right near the office. Lucky us.
Ben heads to the restaurant where she's having lunch. He gets out and goes inside to check it out. A few minutes later, he's back outside.
So it looks like she's there with her kid and a couple friends, but I don't see the husband. But nonetheless, her with the kids, it's a pretty decent shot.
So what are you going to do?
The exit's kind of just here on the side, so I'll just get a position across the street with a good visual to the door and just, try to get some shots when she comes out.
He pulls into a spot across the street and waits. There's a lot of waiting on these stakeouts. Ben passes the time watching DVDs, listening to talk radio, or reading the conservative magazine National Review. He calls himself a vegetarian butcher. He doesn't read the magazines he shoots for. Ben's only concern on this stakeout is that other paparazzi will see his car and smell blood in the water. And sure enough, one of them shows up.
Here we go. F***ing scumbags. There you go.
He convinces the other photographer to let him have this one. And so that photographer drives away.
Yeah,
we settle in and wait for a few more minutes, and then...
There we go.
Mira is outside the restaurant holding her baby. She soon sees Ben, even though he's shooting from inside the SUV and the windows are rolled up. She covers the baby's head and darts back into the restaurant as her friend goes to get the car. Did you feel kind of bad that she was shielding the baby there? She obviously didn't want the baby's picture taken.
Feel bad? No, I don't. My feeling is she's a celebrity, pretty well-known celebrity, and she's out at lunch with her baby. It's, reasonable that on the street when she comes out of the restaurant, she's going to have her picture taken.
Sitting here, I felt a little stab of
But what would you have felt? Privacy. What would you have felt if she would have been saw us and then waved and made the baby wave with its little arm? Then what would you have felt?
Different, because it's the parent saying it's okay to take a picture of the baby.
Right. So that's what we're down to is, did she give permission or not? On a red carpet, Mira Sorvino decides, what do I look like? Am I with my kid or my husband or neither? It's her choice how she's going to be presented. When she's on the street and there's a paparazzi photographer, that choice is eliminated.
And he says so-called real photojournalists do the same thing.
Open the LA Times and you're going to see either a starving child or a crying widow. Now, did that woman whose husband got killed in a car bomb in Iraq, let's say, did she want to be splashed across the pages of newspapers in the United States? Or what about that starving kid? Does he want to be splashed across looking unhuman? Does he want that?
Ben would go on, but Mira has emerged again to scurry into her friend's waiting car. He throws the SUV into drive and pulls up right next to the car.
Mira?
Do you think you could just leave her alone?
Can she give me a picture?
No, she can't.
Okay, I can't leave her alone.
Okay, I'll call the cops.
Thanks.
I'll call them.
You want to use my phone?
The stakeout lasted about an hour. Ben returns to his photo agency and downloads the Mira and baby picture into the computer. It's a nice shot. Mira's smiling slightly. The baby is chubby and cute. The photo is worth between $200 and $500. And Ben's day is done.
It's like an unwritten, unspoken agreement that one makes when they become famous, whether by choice or not. And you can't say, no, I want out of the agreement now. No, it doesn't work that way. The agreement's been made.
and it's about our fixation with celebrity and celebrity culture and the importance of the image, celebrities born of photography. When Princess Diana died, there was a sort of standstill in Britain the day or the moment of her death, and people decided to mourn her death in a sort of mass way. I was fascinated by this phenomenon. So I wondered, could one erase the image of Diana actually quite crudely and physically? So I got a gun and started to shoot at the image of Diana. But I couldn't erase this from my memory. The press wrote about her death in rather kind of, I felt, pornographic ways, like which bit of artery left which bit of body and how did she die in the back of the car. And I was intrigued by this sort of mass voyeurism. I then went on to wondering whether I could actually replace her image. So I got a lookalike of Diana and posed her in the right positions and angles and created something that was in or existed in the public imagination. So people were wondering, was she going to marry Dodi? Was she in love with him? Was she pregnant? Did she want his baby? Was she pregnant when she died? So I created this image of Diana, Dodi, and their imaginary mixed-race child. And this image came out, which caused a huge public sort of outcry at the time. I'm particularly interested in how you can't rely on your own perception. So this is Jane Smith and Joe Bloggs, for instance, but you think it's Camilla and the Queen. And I'm fascinated how what you think is real isn't necessarily real. And the camera can lie, and it makes it very, very easy with sort of the mass bombardment of imagery to tell untruths, and is more interesting to look at than the actual real subject matter. And at the same time, it removes us from the real subject matter. In the photograph, the real subject doesn't exist, so it makes you want that person more. And that is the way I think, celebrity magazines work now, that the more pictures you see of these celebrities, the more you feel you know them, but you don't know them, and you want to know them further. Then I was sort of making imagery of, in England, there's an expression, you can't imagine Queen on the loo. So I'm trying to sort of penetrate that. Well, here is the image. All this imagery was creating a lot of fuss, and I was cited as a disgusting artist, but the press were writing about this, giving full pages about how terrible this was, which I found very interesting, that it was going kind of full cycle. I was making comments about the press and about how we know facts and information only by media, because we don't know the real people, very few of us know the real people, that it was going back into the press and they were publicizing effectively my filthy work. Then suddenly it started to get on the front pages, like I was being asked and paid to do front covers, which suddenly I was becoming sort of acceptable. I then started to work for magazines and newspapers. This is, for example, an image that went into Tatler. This was another newspaper image. It was an April Fool, actually, and to this day some people think it's real. I was exploring at the time the hyperbole of icons and Diana and Marilyn and the importance of celebrity in our lives, how they wheedle their way into the collective psyche without us even knowing. She looks nothing like Marilyn, but by the time we've made her up and put wigs and makeup on, she looks exactly like Marilyn, to the extent that her husband couldn't recognize her or recognize this lookalike in these photographs. The importance of imagery and how we read all our information through imagery. It's extremely fast way of getting information. It's extremely difficult if it's constructed correctly, and there are techniques of constructing iconic imagery. How do we know when we're looking at something whether it's real or not?
The photograph that it was taken from is Michael laying on a
La foto
stage.
vera, 9,99%, è un fotomontaggio, è un
That it was
falso.
photoshopped. It is a fake.